Hello and welcome to my first ever keyboard build video. In this video, I'll be showing you how you can make any budget mechanical keyboard sound premium with just a few mods, and for the video, I'll be using the BM65 DIY kit. It's a 65% mechanical keyboard with a plastic case and a aluminium plate. So, the BM65, I chose this keyboard because it has many options. It's a DIY kit where you can choose to get plates, stabilizers, and even switches with it. So the reason I chose it was because it looks like a premium 65% keyboard, but without the premium price tag. So in this video, we're going to use it and mod it with Krytox 205 grade 0, a pencil brush, stem holder, tweezers, pennies, desk key switch films, scissors, PE foam, masking tape, duct tape, and the keyboard itself. These are all the mods that we'll be using for the keyboard. So now let's go to the first step. So for the first step, it's lubing the switches. So these switches right here are the Gateron Black Ink V2s. They are a linear switch, and when lubed, they apply a good amount of torque, a really torquey switch that we are going to use for this build. And now what we are going to do is to open the switches and lube the top housing, stem, spring, and bottom housing. These are all the parts that we are going to lube to get the smoothest experience possible. We start off with taking the stem holder and putting the stem onto the stem holder so we don't get lube all over our fingers. Then we put it to the side and take the bottom housing and lubing it just like Types did in his video, where he lightly lubed it on the sides and the leaves, and then around and inside the stem hole. Now put it to the side and take the top housing. We are going to lube all the sides of the top housing to get rid of the scratchiness and make it as smooth as possible. Then put it to the side and take the stem. Now we're going to lube the stem lightly just like Types did. The stem is the most important part in the switch. The stem is what makes contact with the bottom and top housing, so if the stem isn't perfectly lubed, it will have a lot of scratchiness on the switch. So now for the spring, we're gonna take a fair amount of lube and lube the top and bottom of the spring. That's where most of the spring ping is coming from, and we are going to get rid of that with the lube. So once you have done lubing all the components, it's time for the desk key switch films. These films will make the switch more stable, less stem wobble, and fill out the empty space between the bottom housing and top housing. So now once you placed it in, take the spring and put it onto the bottom housing. Then put the stem onto the spring and then press it down a little bit so you get the smooth contact, and then put the top housing onto the bottom housing and close the switch. Make sure to close it correctly so you don't flip the top housing on the opposite side, otherwise you won't be able to close the switch. And then press it down a little bit so you can feel the switch to see so it's functioning properly. Now for the PCB, this is a 65% hot swap north facing LED PCB. So that means that the switches are north facing and not south facing, and it might have an issue with some keycap sets. What we are going to do now is to place the stabilizers onto the PCB and then check if it has any rattle. So for the stabilizers that I went with this build were the Everglide V2 stabilizers. They are screw-ins, so you're gonna have to screw them into the PCB and then screw them out if you have any rattle issue with them. And then for the mods that I did to these stabilizers, I only used Krytox 205 grade 0, and I didn't wholly mod them or band-aid mod them at all. So after you've done screwing in your stabilizers, it's time to put in a switch and test it if it has any rattle to them. You better do this before you put the switches onto the plate, because it's gonna be a pain in the ass if you have to pull them out again. Now let's see how it sounds. So once you have screwed in all your 4 stabilizers and checked if they sound good, we're going to put the switches on. But before we put the switches on, we are going to use the PE foam mod. The PE foam can change the sound of any keyboard drastically, and here's a sound test of PE foam with and without. So, as you saw Killer Keyboard's video, it changes the sound drastically. But before you can start, you have to find the right size PE foam. Not too thick, but kind of thin, so the switches can go through. Then we're going to do as Technology Brother does right here, using a marker to mask out the size and then cut it so it fits perfectly. That's what we did right here. And then once you have done this, you're going to take the plate and put the switches on. So for this build, I went with the aluminum plate, but I started off with putting one switch already in, so you know where to put the switch in. Because of the PE foam, you can't really see it, and this will help you locate the holes. Once you put it in, make sure to put your thumb also underneath while you're putting it in, so you don't pop out one of the hot swap sockets. Then once you put it in and you're good to go, you can keep on putting on the rest of the switches. So now, once you have put in all the switches onto the plate and the PCB, and you test it so everything works, it's time to go over to the case. As you can see, the case is just a plastic normal case, and it will sound really hollow if we don't mod it. So for the case, as you can see, we have a lot of empty space, and we are going to use pennies. Yeah, you heard it right there. We're going to use pennies, just like Flurbs did in his video when he modded the RK61. The pennies will add a lot of weight to the keyboard, and it will make it sound more premium, just like an aluminium case but in a plastic. So once you put all the pennies on, as you can see, it has a lot of weight, but we are going to use duct tape to tape it all up so it doesn't rumble and make noise in it. So after you've duct taped the pennies and it's sturdy, it doesn't rumble around, it's time to put some foam into the case. The foam will help reduce the hollowness, but make sure not to get a thick piece of foam because there's not a lot of space in the case and you won't be able to close it after. So after you place the foam in the case, it's time to take the PCB and then put masking tape on the backside of the PCB. We're gonna do 3 layers of masking tape, and this is called the Tempest tape mod. So how Tempest does it is he takes a piece of masking tape and he places on the backside of the PCB. This will allow to get more poppy sound and the sound won't escape in the case. So once you have placed 3 layers of masking tape on the back side of the PCB, it's time to put it into the case. So you're gonna press it down and take the top case and pushing it down to make it fit. When you're done with that, you're almost done with the build. So now, as you can see, the keyboard is kind of slippery, but that's because we don't have any rubber feet onto it. We are going to put 4 rubber feet and then 2 on the flip-flop feet. So we are gonna get the rubber feet and we're gonna put it on. To speed up the process, I'm going to try to use a trick that I learned from other content creators. Wow, it actually worked. So once you have put on the flip-flop feet and the other feet, you can see it's now sturdy and it won't wobble or move on your desk. So now we have to put on the keycaps. So for the keycaps, I went with some white on black PBT keycaps from Taihao. These are really good keycap set for the price. Now we are going to try the magic trick again, and it worked. As you can see, it's an all black clean build. I think I matched the keyboard really good with a all black theme set, and with the white accents on the keycaps, they look really good. But now without further ado, let's go for the sound test. So what are my final thoughts on the BM65? To be honest, I really like the board. One thing I like is this little block right here. It makes it look like a premium keyboard, but it's actually not. I really like it because it makes the 65% keyboard look more expensive than it is. I like the side profile, and the back side you can put any logo that you want on it, but it has a nice weight right now onto it and it looks really clean. I like how it feels. It's stocky, and in general I'm really happy with it. It has a nice feel as I wanted the linears to be, and the Gateron Black Inks do never disappoint with the sound or the feel. So in conclusion, I'm really happy with the board. It looks great, it feels great, and I would definitely recommend the BM65 to any new beginner. I will give it a solid 7 out of 10 for the board. But yeah, I hope you guys liked my first ever keyboard build video, and I'm out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.